Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. So this is a continuation of a series of reviews I've been doing. I started reviewing Countdown to Final Crisis at issue 51, and I've been counting down all the way to number 1. Right now we are at issue number 2, so I'm very excited to review this one, and then issue 1, and that'll be the whole series, and then I guess I'll take a look at Final Crisis. So issue number 2 was written by Paul Dini with Sean McKeever. The story consultant was Keith Giffen. The art on this, so the penciling through the issue, was done by Scott Collins. The coloring was done by Tom Chu. He did an amazing job as always. That's one thing about this Countdown to Final Crisis series, is the coloring has always been really consistently good, which I know isn't a big selling point to a lot of people, but I think is very important and is often overlooked in comics, especially newer ones. So the cover on this is done by Adam Kubert. It's definitely well done, as you would expect from anybody named Kubert, but the subject is just a little silly to me. So you see Darkseid, of course, and he looks great, but he's also fighting Jimmy Olsen. So, oh man, it's been this long running story arc where Jimmy has superpowers, and in this issue he manifests them to be this big green giant monster. So what you see on the cover is what you get in the issue. That's what happens right when you start off on the first page. There's a little bit of a cliche thing where it's a bunch of different news reports and they're all talking about the destruction and the chaos and they don't know what's going on. But then we get this full page splash page and you see it. This is what's going on. So it's Jimmy Olsen fighting Darkseid, and you're just like, what in the heck? But if you've been following along and reading the previous issues, you know Jimmy has powers. They come out in different ways, and the whole reason he has them is because Darkseid has been hiding some power inside of him, and he came back to collect it. So that's why they're fighting now. Jimmy isn't willing to give up his power. And he does a pretty good job of it. He's holding his own for a little while, but ultimately it looks like he's going to lose. And yeah, it looks pretty bad for Jimmy. You see Darkseid's holding him there. And right when you think everything's going to go wrong for old Jimmy, turns out the Atom has been crawling around inside of Jimmy in his microscopic size. So he pulls out the Soul Battery, which is what, Darkseid was there to collect, and he smashes it. Of course, Darkseid's really mad. He goes, no! And he's all pissed off and he's gonna squish the Atom, but then we kind of have another Deus Ex Machina, and all of a sudden there's a boom tube, and he says, a boom tube, but who? Then we get my favorite page. Now this is why you want Scott Collins to draw your books. I think he's an excellent penciler, and it really shows on this page. So and the coloring too, this is a good example of amazing coloring. But as you see there, Orion comes through the boom tube and he says, Father, this day will mark the end for you. And it's just so cool. I mean, the panel zooms in on his eyes. It's all dramatic. Now that is a good page. I wish more of this issue and Countdown as a whole had been like that, but this is a great page. I like it a lot more than the cover, for instance. So then he booms him out and to another area, and then we get a lot of pages of Orion and Darkseid fighting. So that's actually the main fight in this issue. It's not really between Darkseid and Jimmy, although that's how it starts out. It really ends up being Darkseid versus Orion. And it really goes back and forth for a long time. It looks like Darkseid's gonna win. He's really got the upper hand on him. But yeah, it's just great. It's kind of crazy though. It goes for a long time, like 8 pages probably, of just them fighting. The heroes are watching though at one point. I actually really like these panels. Kyle Rayner says, Superman, I don't care what Orion says. We've got to do something here. And Superman says, this is between father and son, Kyle. This is between gods. So, new gods, old gods. In the DC universe, they have that. So anyways, they're fighting. It looks really bad for Orion. He's actually, Darkseid's actually standing on him. But then the whole situation turns, and Orion shows how merciless he can be too. Old Darkseid's actually impressed and says, that's the spirit. These are the words of the one I would call son. So the fight just continues and continues, and finally Orion punches into his chest, and he actually pulls Darkseid's heart out. So unfortunately this doesn't have any bearing on what happens in Final Crisis, because as you know, Darkseid's a big part of that. But in this issue anyways, Orion has defeated him, so we'll have to see in issue 1 what happens as a consequence of this. But it's looking pretty bad for Darkseid. Orion pulled his heart out, there's a big explosion, and then just Orion's left. So see him all walking away there in the rain, and superheroes are looking on. It's real dramatic, and it says to be concluded. So that's, of course, because there's one more issue after this. There's a little bonus at the end. I thought it was really good. It's the origin of Darkseid. So that's an extra 2 pages where they kind of run through just a little bit, a brief overview of who he is and his, biography. So I guess that's all for now. Just a real quick review. We're going to be looking at issue 1 here real soon. I might as well, right? Just to finish the series. But overall, it was pretty good, but it was honestly, the entire comic was fighting. It was just Jimmy versus Darkseid, and then Darkseid versus Orion for the entire issue, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but, we're getting towards the end of the book here, the series too, so could have been a little more to it, I suppose, but overall it really wasn't that bad, and it definitely didn't jump around or have some of the kind of continuity problems that some of the other issues, Countdown, admittedly have. So overall, a decent issue, but it's too bad it doesn't have more bearing on what happens in Final Crisis. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And as always, thank you for watching and being a part of DC Fans United.
End of line.